Good evening, everybody. My name is Seth Engelborg, the chair of the Nantucket Conservation Commission. This is the meeting of the Nantucket Conservation Commission on November 7th at 5 p.m. The first thing we're going to do here is figure out the roll call of members. So members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Let's start with Mike Miserelli.
Here.
RJ Turcott.
Here.
Joe Plandowski.
Here.
Tim Brand.
Here.
John Schaefer.
Here.
And it appears that's it. Just as a reminder, this meeting is being held in a hybrid format. We have people physically present in the room and some on Zoom. I'll ask you to speak through the chair. If you have a question or comment, please raise your hand and address it through me, and then we will recognize you. Turning to our agenda, we have a few things continued tonight. The first is Sconser Beach Preservation Fund at 41 through 119 Baxter Road, SC 48 3736, continued until November 21st. We have Sconser Beach Preservation Fund at 59 through 83 Baxter Road, SC 48 3759, continued until November 21st. We have the Summer House of Nantucket Realty Trust, 10 and 16 Ocean Avenue. That's continued until November 21st. Then under certificates of compliance, we have 5 QPR LLC at 5 Quays Pastures Road, SC 48 3593, continued until November 21st. Those are the continuances for tonight. So now we'll begin the meeting.
Seth, really quickly, can I make a quick comment? In the continuance request that we received primarily for SC 48 3736, that request did include a request to potentially schedule some special hearings going forward too. So I think if that's something the commission's interested in, we can put together some dates following the 21st. I know we're getting into the holiday season and that gets super tough, but we can even look into 2025. I had to check the year.
Yes. So because the application is not currently open at this hearing, I think we should do that outside of the meeting. If you want to do that and work with the commissioners, that would be great.
Well, I was just going to suggest we'll just provide you guys some dates. Maybe we'll even have them for the procedural meeting next week, and then you can select some from there.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. So we'll now begin our meeting under public comment for items not being heard on the agenda today. Does anyone physically present in the room wish to make a comment? Does anybody on Zoom wish to make a comment? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the public hearing, notices of intent, and we will start with Maxwell House LLC at 15 Cliff Road, SC 48 3808, represented by Brian Madden. Brian, good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you very much. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. This project was opened up. It's an invasive species management plan on a coastal bank. Some minimal invasive species restoration work within land subject to coastal storm flowage in the buffer zone to an offsite vegetated wetland. I think I had presented this at 2 meetings ago, and we had continued awaiting some feedback from DEP, which I understand that Will had reached out and through some connections basically affirmed that an ecological limited project restoration is not really appropriate in this situation. And I can get into more details on the management, but I think that's just effectively what we were continuing to wait for DEP's feedback.
Thank you, Brian. So the feedback actually it was sort of what you said, but it basically was that the commission retains discretion over projects to either hear them under the notice of intent or then under the ecological restoration project unless it gets flagged by DEP or meets the aerial limits. So we certainly could hear this as a restoration project, but it's my opinion that if DEP doesn't require us to do so, there's no benefit for doing it, so we're going to allow this to proceed as a normal notice of intent. But the commission certainly does have discretion should it want to hear this project or any other project as a restoration project. It's up to them.
Yep.
Commissioners? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Did we receive that feedback? Was that distributed? Or did you just go to the office? I'd like to see it, is what I'm asking for.
Okay. That feedback has not been circulated. It was there was a email between myself, Will, with some thoughts from DEP, but since we talked about it in the public hearing and it's part of the record, I'll ask the staff to circulate that to commissioners and applicants.
Yeah, sure thing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm okay to hear it if we wanted to go that route, but also would be interested to see the correspondence.
Yeah, I think Seth put it very much more eloquently than my summary, but I think it more has to do with how it complies with performance standards, and if there's any grayness to it, an ecological restoration limited project is more appropriate. Here, we're only dealing with the coastal bank primarily, so the primary concern is related to slope stability, and we've integrated proposed BMPs to ensure that there's no adverse effects.
Thank you. There's also another side to it in that it's our role as a commission to obviously do our jurisdictional and regulatory diligence, but to not unnecessarily delay permitting. And for projects that are going to meet all the performance standards and not trigger the limits for the restoration project, requiring somebody to go through the extra filing and the environmental monitor posting and everything has an unanticipated impact, and it may push people to decide not to do invasive species removal or restoration projects that we actually want. So obviously we're going to use the protocol if we need to, but it's our role to obviously permit beneficial projects like this. That's why I feel completely comfortable with the notice of intent. I was just not sure. It seemed like DEP had changed their mind, and now it seems like they just think we can do either way. So if we can do it either way, we're just going to stick to the way that we've done it before. At least that's my opinion, but I know I'm just one commissioner here. That being said, we will circulate the emails. Commissioners, anything else? Members of the public, any questions or comments? Seeing none. Brian, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Staff, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, you do.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Thank you, Mike and Joe for the second. We're all here in person, so we can do a vote just in favor rather than roll call. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. You can also let me know for the record that Commissioner Williams has joined at 5:09. I think you got to pull that one up. All right, then you get to sit on that plastic thing, I think. While that's happening, we're going to move on to the next notice of intent, which is Mua Basic LLC at 20 East Lincoln Avenue, SE 48 3814, also represented by Brian Madden. Brian, you're back up.
Thank you very much. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. I had presented this project at the last hearing, and there was, based on some feedback received, we provided a supplemental letter and accompanying site plan with some project updates and revisions. The existing dwelling that we're proposing to relocate and move further away from the isolated vegetated wetland located on the property. We moved it over an additional 3 feet. That gets us to 13.7 feet away from the wetland at the closest point. Again, that IVW is largely infested with invasive species from knotweed. There's some Phragmites and bush honeysuckle as well. That move results in a now cumulative reduction in the 25-foot buffer zone, a structural footprint by 471 square feet, and it also allows for the restoration area to be expanded up to 2,200 square feet, which represents about 70% of the 25-foot buffer zone to be vegetated, either existing or part of the restoration effort. That house move is the max. It can slide over to the northwest. That proposed new structure outside the 50-foot buffer zone in the northwesterly corner of the lot. Those structures are situated 10.5 feet away from each other. There's a 10-foot zoning separation between those two, so that's basically as close as we can get. And that structure up in the northwesterly corner is up against the zoning setbacks with a 10-foot front yard, 5-foot side yard. And I think, Jeff, I don't know if this is the most updated plan, actually, now I'm looking at it.
Yeah, there's a supplemental plan
Yeah.
where a patio was added.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, let's see if I can
So the,
figure that out.
there were some questions about the existing foundation and the reconstruction. And so the existing dwelling, and I included a photograph, the first floor elevation is at elevation 6. It has a perimeter crawl space, concrete crawl space foundation. There's some gaps or access points into the crawl space, but largely it's a block perimeter foundation. The back set of stairs and back porch is a solid structure of concrete. What we're proposing to do is elevate the structure to meet zoning, flood zone standards. So it's being elevated a little over 3 feet with the first floor elevation at 9.2. We're eliminating that solid concrete back steps porch area and the existing front porch, which is on sonotubes. The front and back porches will be elevated on sonotubes, and the foundation for the crawl space is going to be elevated, and there's going to be flood vents incorporated into the crawl space foundation. So the flood storage capacity and or flood flow through areas are going to be significantly improved under proposed conditions in comparison to existing. And we've provided some additional documentation that we feel that the property will be enhancing the ability to absorb and contain floodwaters. Again, we're increasing the wetland structural setbacks, reducing further the structural footprint within the 25-foot, reconstructing the dwelling with flood compliant foundation, enhancing the flood zone interests, and providing that 2,200 square feet of wetland buffer zone restoration enhancement. So we do, I think, fit the waiver provision for the long-term net benefit, but we did provide some additional detail on revisions. So I'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments from members of the commission? Okay, seeing none. Any questions or comments from members of the public? All right, seeing none. Jeff, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, sir, you do.
Brian, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
We're going to take John. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously with Commissioner Turcott recused. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
So that will move us on now to 44 Matticat Road Realty Trust at 44 Matticat Road, SC 48 3817. Also represented by Brian Madden. Keep at it.
Boy, he gets to come over here every month now.
Thank you very much. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. This one was for proposed porch, reconfiguration of a stone patio, and reconfiguration of the existing driveway within the 100-foot buffer zone to BVW. Based on feedback we received at the last meeting, we've made some project updates. Yeah, I think, yeah, Jeff, yeah, we have another updated plan here. So basically, we were able to reduce the width of the driveway a couple feet. That pushed it off of the westerly property line and allows for an area where we're proposing a revegetated slope. So on the west and south side of that driveway corner, upgrading of the 25-foot buffer zone. The original proposed timber retaining wall and the existing timber wall that's there right now is proposed to be removed. We've, been able to regrade it in a manner that removes that structural element within the 50-foot buffer zone, but we are proposing to keep some edging along the perimeter of the driveway. Basically, what that will do is it'll contain the pervious material within the driveway footprint itself. The driveway from south to north, moving towards Matticat Road, has a slight pitch towards the bike path, and we propose a dry well to capture any runoff before entering the bike path. That's in the northwesterly corner of the driveway. We are leaving a brick apron within the easement abutting the bike path, as discussed at the last meeting. That's shown on the revised plans. So the revegetated slope will be replanted with sweet pepper bush, bayberry, arrowwood, similar to the additional restoration area in the 25-foot buffer zone that we are maintaining and keeping as proposed. So we feel that the project will provide a long-term net benefit for the work within the 25-foot buffer zone, the revegetation efforts, and the removal of the retaining wall. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Commissioners. Linda, go ahead.
I think I mentioned it the last time, Brian, that you have to have an apron on both sides of that bike path, and you're not showing that.
We are maintaining the cobble apron on both sides.
Right, because it's just not shown here how you're getting from the north side of the bike path to the street.
You can maybe zoom in up there, but
I tried to do it here, but it got blurry.
it's complicated to see because the stippling isn't that different, but there is a cobble at the top, and then there's a cobble on the
Okay,
south
I just
as
want to
well.
make sure.
Yeah, no, we did look into that. We did incorporate it. So that transition against the bike path, there's cobble. I mean, there's that cobble apron.
Other commissioners? Okay, seeing no questions or comments. Any questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none. Jeff, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, you do.
Brian, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Linda. Is there a second? Thank you, Mike. Let's just do the voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
All right. And that will move us on to Matticat Land Trust, various properties, SE 48 3813, represented by David Haynes.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you all. Again, David Haynes with Haynes Hydrogeologic Consulting, representing the Nantucket Land Trust. This hearing was continued from last time for the same reason that Brian's earlier hearing was, about questioning whether it was an ecological restoration project. I did work with Will in getting information from DEP. Mark Bartow is on vacation, and so he would have been the person to talk to. Spoke to various people in various regions, and came up with the information that, as Seth summarized, you can do it that way, or you can do it, since it meets the performance standards, you can do it under a full notice of intent. If it does exceed the performance standards, then you do have to file it as a ecological restoration limited project, and it requires filing in the environmental monitor and various other things. Anyway, so what this project involves is basically removing of its main intention is to reduce the fire danger in this area. There are many, as the photographs show, downed dead pine trees, black pine and Japanese black pine, and those the land trust would like to remove those to protect the area and reduce the fire danger. Also, we are doing work in the buffer zone only, except for land subject to coastal storm flowage, where we're continuing to mow some area that has been mowed before. No clearing, no mowing will occur closer than 37.5 feet to the wetland to maintain 50% of the 25 to 50. The work in the other wooded areas, anything within 37.5 feet will be done by hand, but big logs may be winched out by equipment outside of the 37.5 feet. No work will occur in the BVW or on any potential coastal bank in that area. Invasive species, since we're working down to the wetland boundary, we have asked for a waiver of removal of the trees, but also invasive species, including honeysuckle, multiflora rose, some vines, and treatment of the stumps with rodeo by manufacturers' recommended dosages. So we are asking for a waiver with an overall net benefit because we are removing the invasive species. And that's, again, buffer zone only. No work will occur in a resource area except for the land subject to coastal storm flowage. The property is owned by either Nantucket Land Trust or the Nantucket Land Bank, who have authorized the work to be done on their property. And with that, furthermore, we have no change in grades, not anticipating any soil disturbance. If we do get some scuffing from mowing or equipment, we will seed it with a conservation seed mix to stabilize soils. With that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, David. Any questions or comments from members of the commission? Seeing none, any questions or comments from members of the public? Also none. Jeff, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes.
David, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. For the second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. So now we'll be moving on to Nantucket Islands Land Bank at 19 Walwinet Road, SC 48 3818, represented by Liz Phelps, and I think we need to promote her to a panelist.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Good evening.
Good evening. Liz Phelps representing Nantucket Islands Land Bank on this application for 19 Walwinet Road. This is a 3.3 acre site that the land bank acquired in August of 2020. It was historically part of the Eat Fire Farm, Eat Fire Spring Farm that once comprised over 300 acres in the area. The area was subdivided in the 70s and residences were built. The land bank got a permit to complete restoration work at the site under SE 483560. That was for demolition of some structures, landscaping, ADA accessibility. And then we obtained a second permit, SE 483636, to allow Fogtown Farm to operate a small scale lavender and berry farm at the property. This application is requesting the repair of existing stream culverts on the site, which have increasingly become overwhelmed during high precipitation, flooding events, and require inspection and repair. So resource areas on the site consist of BVW and inland bank associated with the stream. If you go to figure 2, Jeff, you can see the existing conditions. The stream basically comes off of the eastern wetland complex onto the property and flows adjacent to the NISDA barn into the culvert system on the western portion of the land bank site. It then daylights at 2 locations known as Eat Fire Spring, and from there is diverted again beneath the NISDA easement to a BVW. This system has been in place for many years, and it facilitates farm equipment to move from the site to the northeastern fields via the NISDA easement. There would effectively be no way to do that without that culvert system. So there is no natural heritage endangered species habitat located in the proposed work area, and so no notification was required. And the area is not located within land subject to flooding. We did receive permission from NRD to do emergency pumping during precipitation events that cause flooding, to basically divert the water that's overflowing the banks near the NISDA barn to the lower reaches by Eat Fire Spring before it goes onto the NISDA property. But that's not a long-term solution. So, and it's also getting colder and the pumps are going to stop working. So we're requesting this permission to, if you want to go back down to figure 4, Jeff, we're going to leave but inspect the green sections on the property, not on the NISDA section, and then replace the red section. We are proposing to remove the section that's in light green. We would have to replace that anyway. There's a catch basin there and then piping. We are proposing to replace it with the system shown in orange, which would be just a catch basin with a longer stretch of pipe that goes directly to Eat Fire Spring. That would just eliminate maintenance issues and, you know, cause a better flow there, just a straight shot to the spring. So after talking to Ernie Strang, he suggested that that's the way we do it. So we're requesting permission to do that. It's my understanding that this is a water dependent project, so I don't think we need waivers. But happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Liz. Any questions or comments from commissioners? We'll start with RJ. I saw his hand first.
Thank you, Chair Engelborg. I don't know, in looking at the definition of water dependent use, that this meets that standard, is my first comment / question. My second one is to the other fellow commissioners, do we consider this actually a stream? Because there's a separate set of standards from Mass DEP with specific regulations when you're updating a culvert and what the diameters have to be and how far down into the bed it has to be. So if we actually define this as it is in the narrative as a stream, we should follow those regulations as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I see your hand, Linda, but I want to respond directly to that. And
I had
then
the same question.
Okay. So here's the fun part about Nantucket. Ecologically, we have streams. We have several streams.
Springs, we have a lot of
Regulatorily,
springs. Yeah.
we specifically say in our Nantucket wetlands regulations that no streams or rivers occur on Nantucket. I always thought that's been kind of weird. And I get the reason for it because the size and scale and scope of what we're talking about is tiny compared to actual river systems. And I think when we were doing the regulatory update, I think one of my comments was we should revisit that, and then we never really did. But because we don't have a regulatory definition for streams on Nantucket, we certainly could look to the Wetlands Protection Act and have a permit that was split where we use the stream standards for the state permit and the basically just the BVW standards for the local permit. But I don't know what we would necessarily accomplish by doing that, so we'd have to have a pretty good reason for that. I don't know if, Jeff, you have anything else to say there.
I mean, I think you encapsulated that pretty well. I think I tend to really agree with Seth, right? When you're looking at it, and especially given the existing nature, that this may not be the project to try to shoehorn into that.
RJ, do you have a follow-up comment?
I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that. So I have this stream crossing standards, and I don't know if it's a conversation we could have in the future, because if there is water flowing through and they're trying to address stormwater and DEP has standards on how it should be built so that it'll work properly, I think we should be just a good practice following that, even if for some reason we said in the regs we don't have streams. I mean, it's called a stream in the notice of intent. So I won't press it any further.
Thank you. I mean, we can liaise with the applicant and see if they would be willing to meet the standards that were in the stream crossing standards. I just think regulatorily we're getting ourselves into a weird place. But Linda, did you have another comment that was beyond what was said so far?
Yeah, I just want to put on the record that I don't get paid for it. I did it as a favor to the land bank. I got the greenhouse that's on this property
Okay.
reconstructed through the HDC part of it. So I just want to put that on the record, but I don't get paid for it. I just did it for them.
Okay. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's pretty straightforward with what Land Bank's trying to do here, and I'm willing to kind of move ahead with what we have, and then perhaps just revisit the whole stream conversation on a separate meeting and even get it into the regs.
Okay. Other commissioners? So before we move on, we should discuss the water dependent criteria. So I'm just going to pull from the performance standard here. So water dependent uses are projects that require direct water access for their intended use and therefore cannot be located out of the area subject to protection under the bylaw. Examples include but are not limited to docks, piers, boat landings, boathouses, marinas, stairs to beaches, and boardwalks over wetland vegetation. Projects which benefit from wetlands access but do not require it are not water dependent uses. Examples include restaurants, dwellings, commercial enterprises, repair facilities, ship chandleries, and general use recreational trails. So our job is to determine whether a culvert requires direct water access. I think given what a culvert does and what a catch basin does, it moves water. I would be hard pressed to see how that is not a water dependent use, but I am open to other opinions on that topic. Yes, RJ, go ahead.
I interpreted that as your water dependent use. Typically, the definition is to get to the water, and this is to avoid the water and allow it to pass underneath.
Hold on. So it says direct water access. So I guess I hear what RJ's saying. He's saying that his view is it are things that need to be located directly next to the water so that you can access the water. And that is probably the majority of the projects that we've seen here before. I can't remember honestly many, if any, culvert repairs coming through this commission. I don't know, Jeff, if you have any thoughts on this. Hold on.
I can think of a couple that we've done. It's been a long time. There were a few in Pulpus. There were some other ones. I know typically this is something that has been considered a water dependent use. I mean, the access is there. I mean, we've had a lot of other projects, things that have happened, you know, in water or things that are there. One example, sorry about that, is when the solar bee was permitted on the north head of Hummock Pond. I know that's before anyone's time on the commission here, but probably me. That was considered a water dependent use because it couldn't be located outside of the water and achieve its purpose. It would have just been a lawn ornament without it being in the water. So, man, I think RJ's point is valid, but I think that water access has always been defined as also that access adjacent to, but access specifically to the water as well.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think access could be in terms of reaching the location like Art is talking about, or it could be directing the proposed project to the water or from the water or something. So I'm comfortable with the water dependent status. Yeah, I mean, you can't have a culvert out of the water. Even if you permitted this project, let's say that just the beginning of the culvert was in the stream area and then the rest was, let's say, rerouted to be outside of the buffer zone. The part that's the start of it, where the stream head is, has to be where the water is, or else the culvert's not doing anything. So, other commissioners, questions, comments? Okay, questions or comments from members of the public? Yes, Mr. Madden, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Just because I deal with stream crossing standards quite a bit. So just a little bit point to make. So the stream crossing standards come into play when you have a new crossing proposed, but if it's a replacement crossing, you comply where feasible or when feasible. So there is some discretion there. I just wanted to mention that. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone else? Okay. So, that being said, Jeff, do we have everything we need to close?
You have all of the legally required information.
Okay. Liz, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
So moved,
would
Mr.
it-
Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, RJ. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. And next up is also Liz, representing the Nantucket Islands Land Bank at 181, 181R, 171R, Hummock Pond Road. And you're up again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Liz Phelps, representing Nantucket Islands Land Bank. This application is for our property known as Gardner Farm on Hummock Pond Road. The area is a conservation area consisting of trails and mowed fields. The land bank initiated conservation measures at the site last year, primarily in response to outbreaks or the threat of outbreaks from the southern pine beetle or SPB. The pitch pines that dominate Gardner Forest are very dense and pose a high risk to SPB infestation. In addition, there's definitely a wildfire risk. Nantucket's Community Wildlife Prevention or Protection Plan has identified Gardner as a priority management area where there's high fuel loads that should be treated. SPB outbreaks have occurred on Martha's Vineyard as well as on NCF's Westgate property, which is less than a mile from Gardner. So the land bank, we have been working with Natural Heritage and with a licensed Massachusetts forester, Adam Moore, to develop a management plan for Gardner for basically for preventative tree thinning. We have submitted a habitat management plan to Natural Heritage for approval and a forest management plan to DCR for approval for this work. Forest plot surveys were conducted at Gardner, and from those surveys, Adam identified priority areas to be targeted. We've already done one phase that did not require Concom permits because it was outside any resource areas. Jeff, if you go to figure 2, you can see the areas that are subject to this application. It's primarily the western property, 181 and 181R Hummock Pond Road, but there's a very tiny part of the buffer that overlaps on the adjacent property, so we just included both properties. The resource areas on the site are marsh, bog, BVW transitioning to a wooded marsh. So the primary vegetation in the bog area consists of cattails and phragmites, with also crested wood fern, native loosestrife, common duckweed, and then it transitions to wetland shrubs, winterberry cherry, viburnum, sweet pepper bush, blueberry, and then eventually to the buffer where the pitch pines get more dominant in the upland forest area, which is dominated by grasses, pitch pine, and scrub oak. The area is not within priority habitat, NHESP habitat, but again, we have been working in conjunction with Natural Heritage for this project, and they have put some restrictions on when we can do the work based on the habitat of the northern long-eared bat and the whippoorwill, which is a type of bird. So we are adhering to that. So basically the work would occur only in the winter, in the fall, late fall and winter, unless there was some type of emergency that required us to do something else. Both management plans are included in the NOI appendices if anyone would like to go into them any further. The project goals are to improve resilience and resistance to SPB, restore a vibrant understory, which would improve habitat, reduce wildfire risk, improve tree resilience to drought and disease, and possibly, hopefully set the stage for prescribed fire as a management tool in the future. The methods are we would first go in and mark, we've already flagged the buffer and the wetland buffer and the wetland itself in the work area. We would go in and flag trees to be removed, establish photo points and take pre-management photos, masticate the area where necessary to safely remove the trees, fell the trees and chip or masticate them, and scarify the ground surface by dragging out the treetops and boles to expose the soil, and remove the boles and the chips from the site, and then take post-management photos. We will follow the BMPs that are outlined in the NOI application, which is for forest management and wetland areas. There are quite a few, but essentially there's not going to be a lot of the pine trees in the wetland itself. Just maybe along the edges. Any trees would be felled away from the wetland. We would not do any wetland crossings. We would not store any equipment or lubricants or do any refueling in the buffer zone. I can go through them in more detail, but they're all in the NOI application. And again, we would be following time of year restrictions that were set by Natural Heritage. This does qualify as a ecological restoration limited project. So we did submit the WPA Form 3 Appendix A checklist to DEP, and we did provide notification to the environmental monitor for this project. But again, we think that this would be a net long-term environmental benefit for the site, for all the reasons listed, and just improve the overall ecological health of the forest. So with that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Liz. Any questions or comments from members of the commission? Yes, Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Liz, I'm sorry to be so dense about it, but is it basically it's a clear cut of all that area of pine?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I wasn't explaining it well enough. It's not a clear cut. It's so based on the surveys, we would be reducing the basal area by a certain percentage. So we would go in and flag the trees that would help meet that that goal. We would be leaving the healthiest, largest trees that would be most resistant to any issues. We still want to keep the pitch pine barren forest. We just want to thin it so that it's less susceptible to SPB and wildfire.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's good news.
Yeah. Sorry for not clarifying that.
Other commissioners? All right. Well, I was extremely excited to see this notice of intent come through. I mean, I've been involved, following along with this project probably more closely than some of you, but I think this is going to be shocking to members of the public when they see the change, but it's going to promote an incredible pine barrens forest that is biologically diverse and resilient, and is going to be much better than what is there now for a lot of reasons. So thank you for submitting this application.
Thank you. And I will say that we did receive some pretty good feedback on the eastern portion that we've done. So it's been kind of a pleasant surprise.
All right. Questions or comments from members of the public? I don't see any, and I am aware that we do not have all the required materials that we need to close, so. would-
Sorry. We actually did just get the DEP file number today.
And has the environmental monitor gone for the 2-week posting?
Oh, so I'm sorry. That's true. You're right. I apologize.
Okay.
Beat me to it.
So I don't think we have everything we need.
No.
Okay. So with that being said, would you like to continue to the 21st of November?
Yes, please.
Real quickly, sorry. I was going to offer, this is the only one I was going to offer this for. We do have our meeting next Thursday, the procedural meeting, and that would hit the 2 weeks on the environmental monitor. If you just want to do it, or you can just carry it to the 21st, 6 and 1/2 dozen.
I think it would be great to do it as soon as we can to try to get in there as soon as possible, if that works.
Not to throw a monkey wrench into it, but
Through you to Jeff.
Go ahead.
We have a meeting next Thursday.
yes, it's the
What time?
procedural meeting that you guys scheduled. I believe it's at 5.
It's at 5 o'clock. We
All
can
right,
talk
here's
about
the
that
other
at the
problem.
end.
The planning board moved their meeting to Thursday at 4 o'clock in here. The ZBA is also overlapping. Are we over at the trailer?
Yes.
Okay.
We can talk more about that at the end, so everyone has that on the
I
calendar.
just didn't want her to count on it if there was a problem.
I'm
Sorry if
gonna
I just threw a
I'm gonna
monkey
be
wrench, but
the no fun person here today.
Oh, for God's sake.
I would prefer that the procedural meeting be retained for procedural issues only, so that we can focus clearly on that, and there's a lot to talk about. I would prefer that this continues to the 21st of November. I understand the time constraint, but it just makes more sense from a logistic perspective.
totally fine.
So that being said, this will continue till the 21st of November.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. All right, so that moves us on to Emirzian at 84 Quidnet Road, represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. This project involves some structural improvements to the existing dwelling. There's coastal dune located immediately east that is flagged, and the 50-foot buffer zone goes through the central portion of the dwelling. What is being proposed is some series of vertical modifications to existing roof lines, some second floor additions over existing footprints. There's no foundation changes on that component, but the stippled area on the west central portion is proposed for a structural infill. Right now, there's an existing deck footprint in that location, and I included a photograph to show you what that looks like. But it's just basically a kind of a entryway type deck into the dwelling that's proposed to be enclosed and become a part of the dwelling. There's a small portion of the existing storage area that's basically a connected shed to the dwelling that's going to be removed, 16 square feet. And the garage up by the driveway is also being proposed to remove. That's just outside the 100-foot buffer zone. But the proposed structural infill, a small portion doesn't occur within the 50-foot buffer zone. There's new foundation work there to match existing crawl space. So we are proposing a waiver for that work. It's about a little less than 60 square feet within the 50-foot buffer zone. That is on the west side, the landward side of the dwelling. That's not going to interfere with the functions of the dune. So we have requested that waiver. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I worked on 86 and 88, and 88 owns 84, so I'm more comfortable not sitting on this.
Okay, please remove yourself from the table and try to make the recusals before the application starts, but. Questions or comments from members of the commission? Nothing? All right, questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none. Jeff, do we have everything we need to close?
No.
We did get a file number for this.
What is the file number? We need
It also came in this.
yeah, we need it to be read, and we need confirmed receipt from the NRD, so send it over as well.
Yeah, I think it probably went to Will and Lisa. The file number is 48-3822.
Can you show us the
Yeah.
email from, or show Jeff, yeah, that's fine.
Oh, you want me to forward that to you?
No, that's good.
Okay.
Sure, someone in our office.
And you're not waiting on any GSP or anything like that?
No, the work is outside of the map
Okay.
area.
With that being said, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Thank you, RJ. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? That carries unanimously with Commissioner Williams recused.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that will now move us on to Capri's Island Holdings LLC at 47 Crooked Lane, represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. This one does not have a DEP file number. We are also waiting on natural heritage within the 30-day window, so we will be continuing. But the proposed project involves reconstruction of the existing single-family dwelling, the secondary dwelling, and installation of a new pool, patio, cabana, shed, garage, studios, and a septic upgrade, driveway reconfiguration, and along with utilities, landscaping, regrading, site work. The proposed work activities occur within the 100-foot buffer zone. The wetland boundaries have been approved through a determination of applicability that was issued last year. The design has been, I provided a good level of detail on the foundation depths and designs to ensure that we're 2 feet above high groundwater based on soil testing that's occurred out there. High groundwater has been documented between 9.3 and 9.8 elevation. So using the higher number, 9.8, I provided all the structural separations to the foundations and including the pool, which will also be the 2 foot, will meet the 2 foot separation. The proposed work is all outside of the 20-foot, 5-foot buffer zone, no structural components within the 50-foot buffer zone. The septic that's located closer towards Nantucket Road is outside the 100-foot buffer zone. So no waivers are required for the proposed project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments from members of the commission? Okay, questions or comments from members of the public? Let's check the Zoom. Yes, please come up to one of the microphones, introduce yourself for the record, any connection you may have to the project, and then you can say your piece.
Hi, I'm Annie Mendelson. I have no connection with the project. I just was notified because I'm an abutter. I had a question about the pool being within the vegetated restricted area, and couldn't it be moved further north to be out of the vegetation area?
Thank you. Brian, would you like to respond to that?
So the pool is proposed with an existing lawn area, and it is outside the 50-foot buffer zone gradient of that.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about.
Sorry, we need you to speak into the mic.
There is some vegetation line of protected plants. Yeah, I need help.
Yeah, so I'll say if you have documentation of what you're talking about, please provide it to the commission. But in the meantime, we can recognize Rachel Freeman. If you want to just introduce yourself, and then you can say what you're going to say.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I am Rachel Freeman. I'm the interim executive director for the Nantucket Land Bank. I have no connection with this project, but Annie and I were having a discussion earlier about it. I believe what she's referring to is priority habitat for natural heritage species layer, and whether or not the proposed pool and deck could be moved towards the north to be outside of that and within the existing law. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. So the applicant has indicated that they've applied to the NHESP, and that review has not yet been completed. So NHESP, Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program, will review this application. And if they believe that any element, whether it's the pool or anything else, somehow causes an impact to rare species, they're going to apply conditions that we are required to attach to our permit that the applicant is going to have to follow. But we usually don't get into discussion about that until we've received their letter, because it doesn't really make sense to hypothesize about what they might say. So this is not going to close today. They can't close without that letter. I would suggest to you that we will likely have that letter at the next meeting, and to come back then to hear what they have to say.
What date would that be?
This will be the 21st of November.
Annie Mendelson again.
Yes, go ahead.
There's a driveway going to the Nantucket property that abuts this property. They have an easement in perpetuity, and it looks like they're planning their septic leach fields to be in that area, and I don't think you should be driving over a leach field. So I'm wondering what's going to happen with that.
Yes, Mr. Madden, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, we are aware of the driveway easement, and the system is located north of it, so it's outside of the easement.
Thank you. I would say too, there are plenty of leach fields that are underneath parking areas or driveways. We don't really have jurisdiction over what happens in the easement. That's like more of a zoning issue, but I'm glad it's not in that area. But if it was to be, because that was the only location that it could be, we've seen projects like that before. Jeff, go
I
ahead.
would say that leach field jurisdiction of that for loading and things on top of that is within the discretion of the health department and Board of Health.
Okay, any other, yes, go ahead, Annie.
So sorry.
No, you're fine.
The leach fields are right next to the pond that's across the way, across Crooked Lane. And I'm wondering if there's any way they could be moved further away from the pond.
Brian, do you want to speak to that?
The system is designed outside the 100-foot buffer zone to the BVW, and that location and proximate to Nantucket Road is probably the furthest away anywhere on site.
Thank you. All right, any other members of the public? All right, so we assuredly don't have everything we need to continue on this one, or to close on this one. Would you like to continue to the 21st of November?
Please.
That will continue to November 21st.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. We'll now be moving on to Capri's Island Holdings LLC. No, we just did that one. Syracuse at 2 L Street, represented by David Haynes.
Good evening again. Thank you again. This is a 2L Street in Nantucket right off of Tennessee. And the proposed work here includes the removal of the existing house, construction of a new house and shed. All of the work will occur, most of the work will occur within land subject to coastal storm flowage or its buffer zone. The site is outside of any natural heritage area, and so no review by them is required. The site is on town water. It has its own upgraded septic system, was recently installed. The house will be constructed above the flood elevation on a concrete foundation with flood vents and floor drains, 6-inch floor drains, 8 feet on center, discharging to a layer of gravel below a rat. So you will not lose any capability of infiltration or loss of flood storage. No great regrading is proposed of the site. The driveway will be reconfigured slightly, and all disturbed areas will be located upon completion of the work. Basically, the foundation will be a frost wall and a crawl space beneath the house, and no basement. With that, if you have any questions. Oh, it does have a file number. We received a DEP file number today, SE 482821. The DEP circuit right was pretty busy this afternoon.
I can see that. Thank you, David. We do need you to send that to Jeff because is not here, so we need physical evidence of that before we could close.
I apologize for interrupting. And anyone else who's on the meeting as an applicant, I know there's only a few left, just email it to me now if you have it, because I don't have access, so we don't have to do that
Okay.
again.
If you can give me a second, I will do that.
Yeah, while you're doing that, we're going to ask commissioners if you have any questions or comments. Okay, members of the public, any questions or comments? Seeing none, we're just going to wait for the email and then we'll go on from there.
I just sent that.
Thank you. Y'all can take a stretch break if you want or whatever. All right. David, I'm assuming you would like to close?
Yes, please.
It appears we have everything to close, so is there a motion to close?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you, Mike, for the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Nope, that carries unanimously. All right, and we'll move on to Hall at 19 Meduri Creek Road, represented by David Haynes.
Okay, as we speak, I am forwarding you the file numbers. Jeff,
Where they were busy today.
today, and the file number is SE 483820.
Okay.
This is a project where they are asking to relocate an existing gravel driveway to construct a portion of a new driveway and a second dwelling on the property. The work will occur within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. All structures will remain outside of 50 feet, and all work will remain outside of 50 feet. The existing driveway will be, well, the new driveway will be constructed of gravel with utility lines beneath it, and the existing driveway will be loamed and seeded and allowed to naturalize. This site is within a natural heritage priority habitat, and we filed with natural heritage prior to doing the notice of intent and received a take letter, which is within the notice of intent. Something that is I didn't really going to be they wanted to put a basement beneath this house, so do not have groundwater in. I was assuming we were well above any kind of groundwater, and we are going to be doing test pits, and so I am to ask for a continuance until next time so we can get groundwater information and determine whether or not we make sure we were outside of the 2-foot groundwater separation. Other than that, that is basically the project.
Thank you, David. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Questions or comments from members of the public? All right, seeing none, we will then continue this to November 21st.
Didn't he have the number?
Yes, but he is hoping to do groundwater testing. Is that correct, Mr. Haynes?
That's correct.
Continues till November 21st. And we'll move on to Nantucket Islands Land Bank, Lily Pond Park improvements. Rachel, you're taking this?
Hi, good evening. I'm Rachel Freeman. I'm the interim executive.
Yeah,
Oh,
before
okay.
you start, just one question. Are we doing the two notices separately?
I can answer that.
Okay, go ahead.
So we're actually a team who's here tonight. It's me, Ellen Biegert, and Jamie McCarthy from Horsley Witten, as well as Liz Phelps, who you saw earlier in the evening. And we are going to be presenting both of them together tonight. I will be doing the introduction, followed by Ellen and Jamie explaining the layout of the two NOIs and why we decided to present them together, and trying to explain that process.
Thank you. So just to clarify for the record, we're going to have the Lily Pond Park improvements and the Lily Pond Park wetland restoration presented together. You're free to proceed.
Thank you so much. Okay, I guess my first question would be, can we allow multiple presenters to share? Do we need to?
Yep. We can allow anyone you need to
I don't know, I'm just looking at the screen.
share to share. I also have
Oh,
the
that's-
documents on my computer if we need.
Okay, I wasn't sure who's responsible. That was your, okay. All right, thank you so much. My name is Rachel Freeman, and I'm the interim executive director of the Nantucket Land Bank, and I'm here representing the two NOIs tonight with, as I mentioned before, Ellen Biegert and Jamie McCarthy from the Horsley Witten Group. The two NOIs are the Lily Pond Park Improvements Project and the Lily Pond Park Wetland Restoration. And as we clarified, they will be presented together this evening. I will be doing the introduction, and within about 2 seconds, I will be turning it over to Ellen and Jamie. So for a brief introduction, most of you know Lily Pond Park. It is one of the land bank's most popular downtown parks. It's about 6.5 acres. And right now we're in a situation where we don't have great public accessibility and usage because it's incredibly wet, which is leading to a degraded trail system. And we don't have as much accessibility opportunities, or as many accessibility opportunities as we'd like to see in the park. And just a little background on the wetland itself. This area is basically a 90-acre watershed that comes down into the Lily Pond Park. And the park has this incredible capacity to filter stormwater from this residential land that surrounds the park before it basically goes underground and into a pipe, which drains down to Children's Beach and into the Nantucket Harbor. So the capacity of this park to really change the water quality that's going into Children's Harbor is very impressive. Some of the things that we're struggling with in this area, which are our current challenges, are wetland impairments. And this is leading to, this caused by outdated stormwater infrastructure, sediment buildup, and this leads to lawn and flood areas lawn and paths that flood during storm events. And we also have an incredible abundance of invasive species in this area, Japanese knotweed, Phragmites. I could just keep going, garlic mustard. Every invasive species you've heard of is located in this park. So without further ado, I would love to turn it over to Ellen and Jamie to review our project objectives and delve into the NOI.
Great. If you could all just introduce yourself when you get started, that'd be great.
Yeah, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
My name is Ellen Biggert. I'm a landscape architect with Horsley Witten Group. And I'm going to go over the project and then I'll pass it over to Jamie in a few slides. But overall project objectives are to enhance the public access and the user experience, improve water quality for so much water that's coming into the site, and then restore wetland and enhance habitat within the wetland. So to do that and how we landed on that objective, we've been through a few different stages for this project so far. So we started this project with a master planning phase. This looked at the overall surrounding area as well as different alternatives within the park so that we can understand our best way to move forward. After that, we moved it into schematic design and started to vet some of the alternatives or what we had decided. This is where we did wetland flagging and soil evaluation, as well as advancing the design that was selected further, and then some pre-permitting meetings as well. Right now, we're in what's design development and permitting, and as a part of this, we've conducted some public outreach, furthered coordination with the town, had some reviews with the Commission on Disability to advance the designs, and then following this and permitting, we'll be moving into construction documents. Rachel had mentioned this as well, but this is a plan of Lily Pond Park, and the red outline on the plan is the edges of the existing wetland, and the interior of the space is the wetland. So as you can see, majority of the site is made up of the resource. In the center, where this black line is where the existing boardwalk is, and as the site has been getting more wet, the boardwalk doesn't make it to the edge of where the wetland is currently, and a lot of these locations where you see this green stipple is where it has been historically maintained as turf, but was flagged within some of the wetland areas. How people enter the site is down below is North Liberty Street, on the side is Lily Street. So you can either come into the existing parking area here with about 6 spaces, then it's maintained turf until you can get to the boardwalk and come across, or from Lily Street, there's a lawn access point here, similar for where you get into the wetland, and can take the boardwalk across. There's a small entrance off of Westco Place and then one off of a drive further up Lily Street. This is overlaid to show the concept design against the existing conditions as well. This is a rendered plan in the back, and it has been advanced further as we've had more vetting or found out more about the resource areas. But in general, the goals still were to improve that circulation, pedestrian circulation, allow people to get into the wetland, so including a loop boardwalk trail, extending the entrance points further out so they go past where the wetland is currently, and then improving signage and information at the main access points, these 2 locations, and then same with Lily Street as well. The locations that are currently maintained as turf that are within the wetland are being restored back to wetland vegetation as well. And then the center, we would be doing more of the wetland restoration and improvement, and then a section of an outlet pipe. So currently everything in the park drains to one outlet structure partway out here and continues out along the street. A portion of that would be removed and restored as well. We just included some photos to give a general sense of the intent for this, which is to maintain the natural aesthetic that it currently has. So trying to keep the boardwalk lower so that we don't have handrails required in this location, so that it just blends into the wetland, as well as producing more diversity in the wetland species and zones within water. I've also included a picture of the park because the intent is to keep a lot of it with the same natural feel it has now. So just some of the benefits, we would be looking to improve water quality. So like Rachel mentioned, currently the wetland is a location where a lot of the surrounding community drains into it. So at these points where it's draining into the wetland, we are looking to capture some of the water and clean it before it continues into the rest of the resource. Habitat enhancement, so creating more diversity in topography in the wetland so that we have some hummocks and water or standing water in these locations. And then access points and accessible boardwalk into the wetland. Like we mentioned earlier, we are presenting for 2 NOIs within this one site. So we broke those down in the next few slides to explain them separately. So for the park improvements NOI, This is really related to mainly the entrances and upland areas, as well as the boardwalk to get throughout the site. This isn't exact because there is some shared with temporary disturbances, but for the most part, this is generally what's represented in the park improvements. So site access, the new trail system, stormwater management, so everything we're capturing upland before we're letting continue into the resource area, signage, and then wetland replacement. And then the wetland restoration one, really invasive species management. So there's currently NOI out for the invasive species management that's currently going on in the park, but this would be continued throughout construction and then monitored afterward, as well as the restoration area in the center. And then I will pass it to Jamie.
Thank you, Ellen. So as Ellen just broke it down for the different activities for each NOI, the reason for their separation is because the impacts for restoration exceed thresholds. So for those to be filed in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, they need to be filed as an ecological restoration project. However, the entire project overall does not qualify as ecological restoration. The park improvements elements, as Ellen just described, are under that separate NOI for that reason. So some of the temporary impacts, as you can see with constructing the park improvements, are the temporary impacts, which are going to be applied to both projects. And since both projects need to have some temporary impacts due to construction access, material stockpiling, those impacts are split between the two. And then permanent impacts specific to park improvements are listed in this table below. And you'll see that the bordering vegetated wetlands impacts permanently will impact 694 square feet. And that is why there is a wetland replacement area for 754 feet, which exceeds the 1-to-1 mitigation ratio required under the Wetlands Protection Act. Next slide. And for the restoration impacts here, you'll see that is the larger number that exceeds the thresholds, and that is allowed under the Wetlands Protection Act because it is to restore the wetlands. And the temporary impacts for construction period impacts are also included in this table here. And there's been a lot of mitigation measures, including the project planning that Ellen described up front. A lot of instruction, a lot of comments went into the design of this project so that it met the needs of the community and also the regulations under the local commission and under the state level. The construction period measures, we will be implementing erosion and sediment controls, pollution prevention measures, tree protection measures, and the invasive species management is additional mitigation that's going to really enhance the overall site's functionality, both just ecologically and also for wildlife at the site. And there will be post-construction monitoring as well. That will be to ensure the success of all the native revegetation, including within the wetland replacement area. And so this is our overall timeline. So the invasive species management has been underway since September 2024, and that was under the previously approved NOI. That will continue throughout the length of this project and into post-construction of the project. Wetland restoration will be next, followed by the stormwater management, followed by the trail system, and then ultimately the site stabilization. And this timeline here will include that 3-month break during the busy summer months so as not to interfere with tourism. Okay, so with that, I think we can go ahead and open it up for questions.
Thank you all. Questions or comments from members of the commission? Yes, Mike, go ahead.
Just a comment. Looks like a great project, and glad that things will be improving in Lily Pond Park.
Thank you.
Yes. Tim, go ahead.
Maybe a dumb question, but tell me about how the water is treated and what you're trying to, how you're improving it. I'm just curious.
Yeah. So at the, I don't know if it helped, but for the most part, what we're using to treat it is hydrodynamic separators or treatment units that'll be underground. There is at the end of the parking lot. Pull up a plan. Just reshare. So the plans that were submitted have been advanced since this one, but for the most part, at the pipes that are coming into the park off of North Liberty Street, there are some underground treatment units that will help with some of the sediment and pollutant, as well as coming off of Lily Street. And then for North Liberty, the parking lot is sent into a bioretention area, and then water for the smaller storms that go through the separator will also go into a small constructed wetland before overflowing. And then larger storms, when the constructed wetland, which is just uphill of the existing wetland, will continue out to the where it is going right now.
Thank you.
John, did you have something?
That was my question, so,
Okay.
thank you.
Anyone else? I'm also very excited to see this project go forward, so thank you all. Members of the public, any questions or comments? Yes, please approach the microphone, introduce yourself for the record, any connection you may have, and then say your piece.
Hi, Sarah McLean. I'm not sure considered an abutter, but certainly an interest party. I own 6 Gull Island Lane, which is 2 lots down from the existing Lily Pond. And the water, I guess my biggest concern is, if you can pull the plan up again, so once the water is filtered and it continues down and it hypothetically drains into the Lily Ditch, I understand that the Lily Ditch pipe, or the pipe that you currently feed into that then feeds into the Lily Ditch, which ultimately goes out to Children's Beach, parts of that are currently crushed. So it's my understanding with this plan is that that is going to be restored. I guess my biggest concern is if there is excess water now that's coming from all of these different places and is being corralled in a way that is greater than what exists right now, how does this affect all of us who live downstream of this? The Lily Ditch pipe goes through my yard. There's another one that runs 100 feet along my yard, which drains through Wesco Place and around again. So I guess my biggest concern, and the homeowners around there are also concerned, what have you allowed for in terms of our 50-year storm that we seem to get every couple of years? What happens with that?
Yeah, so we are not increasing rates of runoff or the amount of water that we'll be sending through this. So even though we are, and you can see on this plan, there is an increase in boardwalk where it's very minimal, the amount of impervious surface that we're creating. And it's really just, and honestly, the only real sections is just the improvement of a small seating area here and a small walkway to get down where it connects to the boardwalk. With that, by removing the section of Lily Ditch pipe for that extends further into the wetland, we are removing a section that could be crushed or inhibit some of the water. We are not changing conditions for how it has been designed for. So we're not creating more runoff. The very little bit of impervious that we are creating near here, we are taking care of with the practices that we are proposing. And then the outlet structure is going to be designed to function how the outlet structure that exists functions.
Thank you. I will say too, the addition of the created wetland on site is actually going to increase the infiltration capacity of the site itself. And I have been annoyed for a long time about the project, not on the Lily Pond site itself, but the outflow pipe and all the neighbors, you know, in your area and going down to Children's Beach, because the history of that is wasn't done in the super good way, and there's no easements or anything like that for a lot of those pipes, and there's no maps of the pipes, or it's not the best scenario. That being said, the applicant only has the capacity, unless they receive permissions from other landowners, to do improvements on their site. But if you wanted to take on your own project to restore the pipe, or the neighbors want to do that collaboratively, there's nothing stopping you from doing that as well.
Oh, I restored 100 feet of pipe, and it's 24 inches wide. So it was 12 inches, it's now 24 inches. So I've done my part to increase capacity. That's not my concern there. My concern is once this excess potential capacity is funneled in a very specific way down to the Lily Ditch, what's to prevent the flow rate being greater than what it is right now? Right now, all of that area is wetlands. I mean, it's just wet, and the water goes everywhere. So all of a sudden, if we're now funneling it down to the Lily Ditch, and it does not have the capacity to do that in a very big storm, then it's going to flood all of those properties. And that shouldn't continue to be our problem as homeowners there. So I don't really know what the answer is.
I can address this.
Hold on. Yes, if someone from the applicant's representatives team would like to answer that, you can go.
Yeah, I would like to, so all of the neighbors and everyone has been we want to make sure we are not making conditions worse for anyone else. We are only trying to do improvements. I think the way that graphic was just looking was not helpful, because it does look like a channel, if I think I'm understanding what you're saying correctly. So let me pull up the application package.
And just to ease your concerns as well, there has been extensive modeling done on that outlet pipe and on the design of the flow throughout the site that the grading and excavation is intended to create. And it's intended to lessen the potential for any flooding impacts. And it's reducing flows. And the modeling has shown that there will be the capacity, the appropriate capacity out that outlet structure to prevent any excess, as you are mentioning that you're worried about.
Great, thank you.
There's an entire stormwater management report attached to the park improvements project that demonstrates all that modeling.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it's that area that is a straight line, even though it looks like a line. Everything generally, and as you know, is at the same elevation. So there isn't anything that's being funneled or directed. It's just kind of, we're just changing, we're just moving the outlet location back. So there's like less pipe within the wetland is really all that's happening.
And that will actually spread the water out since it won't be funneled earlier on. It'll have more time to get to that outlet structure and more space with which to expand on its way there. And again, to stay within the contained grading and excavation that it is intended to be within.
Thank you. Does that deal with your concerns?
Yes, thank you for the clarification.
Do you have any other questions?
Nope.
All right, thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to ask a question or make a comment? Seeing none, I don't believe we have everything we need to close on these. Is that correct, Jeff?
No filing numbers.
Yeah, to the best of our knowledge, we haven't received any filing numbers.
Okay.
I'm working hard to see which ones we have for sure.
All right. Thank you,
Got like
Rachel,
3
for
people
that
on it.
clarification. So would you like to continue the 2 Lily Pond Park notices of intent to the 21st of November?
Yes, please.
Those will continue to November 21st.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. And that brings us on to Coda LLC, 42 Shima Pond Road, represented by Art Gasparo. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Commissioner, I'm going to be recused from this one.
Okay, yep, go ahead.
The Gasparo, Nantucket Engineering. I'm before you tonight with a notice of intent application for a residential redevelopment project for a property at the north end of Shimo Pond Road, fronting on Nantucket Harbor. This particular property has been residentially used and developed since well before the enactment of the Wetland Protection Act. And on the plan shown in front of you, on the northwest side of the property, we have the harbor, coastal beach, and then coastal bank. And then on the southeast side of the property, on the opposite side of an existing paved driveway, is a coastal bank, which is a heavily vegetated landform that comes up from Pest House Pond and is a jurisdictional coastal bank by policy 92-1. All of the resource areas that we're discussing tonight have already been reviewed and approved as a earlier determination under an earlier determination of applicability by the commission. The property also contains land subject to coastal storm flowage, the boundary of which essentially runs through the middle of the house and up along the existing driveway on the northwest side of the property. What we're proposing to do is to pick up that existing house and move it to the southeast, move it up to a higher portion of the property, get it out from within the current 50-foot buffer zone, remove it from the flood zone, and then to renovate and improve that house. We're proposing to remove an existing smaller structure located on the southwest end of the house and construct an accessory cottage. On the east side, there's also a proposed garage type structure, again, all shown in red, and then a new driveway that would come in off of the way to the south, which currently has sort of an existing brush cut dirt driveway that comes in there right now. The paved way along the southern end of the property, which is within the 25-foot buffer zone to that bank, is proposed to be removed and converted to a pervious surface. And that sort of segues to, we have requested a waiver. There's work that is within the 25-foot buffer zone, structural elements within the 50-foot buffer zone that we're removing. There is a very small portion of retaining wall that you can see on the, that sticks out off of that southerlymost structure. That's essentially the only portion of a structure that's within the 50. So we're taking hundreds of, if not thousands, square feet of structural elements out of the buffer zone and greatly improving, I believe, this property with respect to the interest protected by the commission. We are proposing a swimming pool within the buffer zone. We would, I put in the application, of course, agree to all of the usual conditions that the commission imposes on swimming pools. Irrigation and fertilizer use within the best management practices and limits established by the town of Nantucket. And we've also included, while this is the survey plan, we've included detailed landscape and grading plans. I've worked in conjunction with landscape architects to develop these plans, and believe they meet the expectations, and I hope they meet the expectations of the commission. And we'd be happy to try to address any questions or concerns about this application, should you have any.
Thank you, Art. Questions or comments from members of the commission? All right, my turn, I guess. So I understand that the proposed retaining wall on the southwest corner is only a minimal intrusion into the 50-foot buffer, but could you explain as to what that does? It looks like a very large wall off the structure for, I'm not sure what purpose.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, perhaps if we could go to the grading plan, it might help to, there's a lot of grade change on this particular property. So there you can see where that helps to work with the grades in that particular area for where the house is, and how, again, sort of maintaining a relative a relation between the two structures, the main house and the other house, and then that small piece of a wall helps them to sort of make that corner work, tying into those existing grades. And again, I think if we would, normally, and I know the expectation is typically that we would have sort of a chart, if you will, that shows all of that, but I think we're talking about like 6 square feet or 8 square feet or something along that, compared to, hundreds, if not thousands, if you were actually to include, I believe that that driveway, that paved driveway under the regulations actually would all be considered structural element, and that's even within the 25-foot buffer zone. So we're hopeful that this, we've minimized everything that we could, and that was one small piece that the landscape designers really felt helped to, kind of work to hold this all together.
Okay. Yes, John, go ahead.
Couldn't you just angle that path though and just stay out of it? You don't have to go square like that.
We could certainly look at it. We don't have a file number, so I'll take that, instead of us getting too bogged down on it, we'll take that under advisement.
Thanks.
Whatever other comments we might hear tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And then my other question is related to the reconfiguration of the driveway. So is that actually extending? I know it's going from impervious to impervious, but is it actually extending farther, closer to the resource area?
No, Mr. Chairman. If you were to flip back, in case it helped, I don't mean to flip you back and forth, but the proposed silt fence limit of work is shown in green on my plan, and we have held that on the, I'm sorry, are we talking about there's 2 driveways, perhaps that will help. There's the driveway within the easement on the northwest side, and so no, that all exists. That's actually getting reduced from what is gravel, right? That's a gravel driveway right now, and then that's gonna go, that little strip that you see down the middle would become grass, a couple of shells or shell gravel type of a mix, compared to what's all gravel right now. It's actually getting a little bit narrower. So it's not getting any closer to the resource area. That's actually an existing beach access way, so it dumps, I should say it's where it dumps, but it provides access. It's pretty much on that northwest side at grade there.
Okay, thank you. Other commissioners? Questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none. Art, you said we don't have everything we need to close?
We're waiting on a file number.
Okay,
Yep.
so
I don't have one, and I don't know why my chair just did that, but that's okay.
would you like to continue to the 21st of November?
Yes, please.
I will continue to November 21st.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. And we will move on now to 99 Washington LLC at 103 Washington Street, represented by Paul Santos, and Commissioner Williams is recused. Paul, good evening. How are you?
Good evening. Thank you. For the record, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors. On behalf of the applicant, Sale 99 Washington LLC, for a property located at 103 Washington Street. This is Sale Seafood. I don't think needs a lot of explanation, but it's the Sale Seafood property. It is, the application itself is for new additions, alterations, in addition of an accessible ramp within land subject to coastal storm flowage and within the buffer zone to a salt marsh located across Washington Street. So the plan that you have in front of you depicts the salt marsh across Washington Street to the east of the property. Then the entire property is located within the flood zone. So about maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we were before the commission and we did some improvements to the property that involved a addition of a loading dock and the location of an exterior cooler that was both completed. Subsequently, a COC was issued for the Conservation Commission, and we are now back with this new notice of intent. So the plan here is to do some upgrades to the property. I'll start kind of at the westerly side of the building. The front, what is now that front entry porch when you walk into the building, the intent there is to enclose that area. There are architectural plans in the set too that I'm sure you can take a look at, but the intent was to enclose that front area. It is currently located on a just a series, there's no foundation underneath it. So the plan there would be to do a small crawl space. That area is approximately 250 square feet. That crawl space would be flood compliant with regard to adding appropriate flood vents underneath that area. So that's the first component, is the enclosing of that porch and deck to an enclosed area. The second area would be the second larger hatched area, in which there's approximately 921 square foot. That would be an enclosed addition. That encompasses what is already the loading dock and the area that's approximately 505 square feet, which is the existing cooler. So that all occurs on the existing footprint of what's there. That would be a building enclosure in that hatched area that you see, approximately 921 square feet, all of which is already structure. With that addition would require a stairway access to the west. Those are shown as proposed stairs on the west side of that particular structure. Along the far west area, there'd be a small set of stairs. There is currently a ramp that accesses the back area and where the lobster tank is. That ramp would be removed, and we'd just be constructing a set of stairs. And along the north side of the property, what is that exterior patio area? That would be an elevated deck and a proposed handicapped accessible ramp that would gain access to the store itself. So that area would be decking, no foundation underneath, and then it would provide, again, the handicapped access to the store itself. At the front of the wrapping area between the proposed front addition and the addition of where the coolers are, there'd be a porch that would run westerly and southerly. You'll see the stairways along that area. It's labeled as proposed porch. That would be a porch area. Again, no foundation underneath that particular area either. So that's the extent of the improvements. With the exception of the foundation system under the porch enclosure, everything is on either decking or elevated decking. No change in grade is proposed for any of the particular work. The application itself is a commercial project, so the stormwater report has been filed with the notice of intent. Site itself is not mapped at priority habitat or estimated habitat of, and does not require a filing with NHESP. Again, resource areas would be land subject to coastal storm flowage, buffer zone, and buffer zone to a salt marsh. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Paul. Questions or comments from commissioners? Okay. Questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, do we have a file number for this?
I'm tracking it right now, and as of right now, I still don't have any confirmation that I do, so.
Would you like to continue to the 21st of November?
I would not like to, but I'm going to force to, so yes, we're happy to continue.
Well, sorry to ruin your day.
That's
but
not your fault.
DEP is going to make you continue to
I think there's
the
been a
21st
switching of the signing, so I think everyone that we usually go to today was not available. So we've got someone else now to start tracking when this happens again.
All right. Well, this will continue till November 21st. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes the notices of intent. We'll move on to amended orders of conditions. I'll start with Waterfront Pocomo LLC at 17 Loretta Lane, SE 48 3542, represented by Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Arthur Gasparo, Nantucket Engineering for the applicant, and perhaps if we could have the plan up, I think it might be helpful. I am in front of you to request an amended order of conditions, and I tried to use some colors on the plan. You probably see it on your packet to hopefully make clear what's happening here. Essentially, we had an approval and order of conditions for the removal of the existing structures and construction of brand-new residential structures. And instead, what we're going to do is the applicant would like to continue to use the structures, not remove them. The approved features are shown in the magenta color, and then the existing are shown in the gray black with sort of the cross hatching around them, and then the proposed changes are shown in red. And the resource areas are shown in blue. There's a lot of resource areas in this property. There's a vegetated wetland to the north with Nantucket Harbor. So you got coastal beach, you got vegetated wetland, and then you have south of that a coastal bank. On the west side of the property, there is a salt marsh, and then in the southwest corner, an isolated vegetated wetland, and those are all shown in blue. And again, those boundaries are based upon the current order of conditions. And then in green, I've shown the 25 and 50-foot buffer zones and 100-foot buffer zones, which only really the small portion along the south side, but that septic system's outside the 100. And so what we're proposing to do is, I believe, a much less scope of work in that without the removal of structures, without the construction of new foundations, and instead, what they would like to do is construct a smaller garage, which is shown as the proposed structure on the towards the south end of the property. That would be entirely outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. There's a generator associated next to that structure as well on the backside, on the opposite side of the resource area, also outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. Some driveway modifications to expand the parking areas, keeping those all outside of the 25-foot buffer zone. And then there was a spa approved under a previous amended order of conditions. So we've relocated that spa, that's shown in blue, also outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. A couple of aspects that would require a waiver still is that on the south side of the main house is a small infill addition where they essentially go straight across. And then, so that is within the 50-foot buffer zone, but is again on the opposite side of the existing structure from the resource area. And then an addition that bumps out to the south, which only a very small sliver of that, as you could see in the corner, is which attaches to the structure, is within the 50. And really, we have no alternative there to sort of avoid that and be able to do that addition. Again, we also have an HVAC unit on the east side of the existing cottage within the 50-foot buffer zone. But again, that would be on a bracket, and the existing brick patios are proposed to be replaced with dry laid stone. So there's lots of small, relatively small tweaks or adjustments, if you will, to this. But again, I believe it's in keeping with the existing approval, and actually is less in scope, as I described, continues to meet all of the performance standards and protected interests. But we'd be happy to take any questions or concerns should you have them.
Thank you. All right, questions or comments from commissioners? Jeff, do we have the original order that we can get access to?
Maybe.
All right. So I might be alone in this thought, but I know we have discretion about how to hear applications, but to me, I think this should have been applied for as a new notice of intent, and that the current order should have been requested to be closed out with a certificate of compliance. I understand the rationale for it's less in scope and things like that, but it's complicating the permitting history to the extent that we're losing track of what the original waivers were applied for, what the discussion at that hearing was, and there's new site elements that are structural here. So, I mean, if we can look at it and review that, that'd be good, but I know we can hear this under the amended order of conditions, but I would rather not. Yes, RJ, go ahead.
The site is chaos even before, so I do tend to agree with that comment.
Tim?
Yeah, I find it very confusing, so I think it'd be good to start over.
Other commissioners? Yes, Mike?
I don't disagree that the plan is a little chaotic, and Art, that's nothing that that you did. It's just the way it's presented, given the elements. We did not get an opportunity to do site visits this week. So at the very least, I wouldn't mind doing a site visit, but I'll go with the majority of the commission on the NOI versus where we're at now.
Thank you, Linda.
I'm personally not that confused by it. I know the site really well. I think it's less chaotic at this point because you're keeping the existing structures, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
And the previous one had a sizable structure that was moved back, and that's what the purple is. And the other structure was moved back there. So you're keeping the structures where they are with some modifications to them, much less egregious modifications to the two structures that are there, as opposed to getting them gone and creating two new structures, correct? Is that where I'm going?
That's correct.
So I'm not as confused. In fact, it's less of an impact on the site overall because we're not removing two structures and building two larger structures. So that's where I am at the moment.
Thank you, Linda. I'm also not confused, and I don't think that this is chaos. I mean, I understand what the changes are. I think it represents a materially different project than the project that was originally applied for under the notice of intent, and that to amend that project doesn't meet the threshold for changes. I mean, I could be alone in that, but I think that I just see it as a completely different. I mean, I understand the structures are there and they exist today, and there is a desire to renovate them, but I see that as materially different than getting rid of them and creating new structures. So that's how I sit on this one. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I think in hindsight, and perhaps this will help, is that I should have also prepared a second plan, and I would be happy to provide that plan as part of the conditioned approval to staff that doesn't show what was approved, and it would be much cleaner. I think that I was hoping to demonstrate, and I understand your point, but first on the plan itself, we could provide a updated plan that essentially removes all of the approved elements. And it just makes it basically leaves the red, gets rid of all the magenta, and that would become your plan of record. And I think that would greatly help when it comes time for a certificate of compliance and then understanding exactly what was approved. I was a little torn, honestly, on the new application versus doing this as an amendment. And my sense was that it remained a residential sort of redevelopment project, and that it was so much because we were going to a less intense a lesser intensity of work, but it still was related to, essentially residential redevelopment, if you will, that that was the appropriate way to do this. My concern with the now at this point, a new notice of intent is the timing that would then lead into, and I would just respectfully wonder what really would be the difference in what comes out of the commission. We actually would have, the applicant would get a benefit of more time, perhaps with a brand new application on the back end of the permit, but that's really not sort of what we're looking at with it being minimized. And I believe the same conditions, I saw that Mr. Carlson just had it up. I have the previous order here from before as well. And I believe all of the limit of work hasn't changed, if that also helps you, Mr. Chairman. We have not expanded at all what was the approved limit of work. So we're working essentially inside of what was the approved silt fence. So I think the same, we'd go through all this other process, another set of filing fees, notices, time back on your agendas. And I think the condition, order of conditions that you would issue would be, would have the identical conditions of what this amended order would contain, would just be my take. So I'm not sure what the, respectfully, what the benefit would be of that.
Thank you, and I understand the reason it was filed this way. I'm gonna, I guess, I've already said my piece, so I'm gonna go to the commission's discretion. And maybe we'll hear input from staff too, and then we'll make a decision, but I definitely agree that it could be heard this way. I just don't know if it's the best way to proceed, so. Jeff, go ahead.
So I do have the previous order if people want to see that on the screen.
Yes,
I can
please.
switch the share. You give me a second? Let me. Sometimes it's weird working on like 3 screens at the same time. All right. Sorry, let me just get that out of the way. So we had the the permit overview before, which describes the work. The only kind of finding of interest was the one that no coastal engineering structure of any kind shall be permitted on an eroding bank in the future to protect the project allowed by this permit, except those allowed by waiver. I won't have to go everything. And then as far as conditions go, pretty standard conditions for us. I think the interesting part that's here is, I mean, it's old enough. Well, I think 24 is fine. The waiver, obviously, if we look at the amendment that's here, the waiver references the sections that don't really exist anymore, which can be updated to correct those. As far as the difference between an amendment and an NOI, for kind of my input on that, I definitely hear what everyone's saying. I think if it's helpful for everybody here, the difference between the two is pretty minor, right? So when you do an amended order of conditions, you notice the butters, you have a requirement to advertise in the paper, and there's an appeal period at the end, and the appeal period is only specific to the elements included in the amendment. Under a new notice, obviously, everything would be, would be appealable. I think, right, like some of these are splitting hairs. I kind of agree with Art personally that a cleaned up plan that just shows the new elements only would be helpful. And I also hear what Seth's saying too, that it's cleaner. Sometimes it's not always clean. I'm happy to answer any other questions too. So.
Yeah, Linda, go ahead.
So in essence, the public is duly noticed?
Yes.
There's an amendment?
Yep,
And
by
it
the
was-
same procedure that a notice has or a request for
The
determination.
original, okay. So I don't really have a problem with doing it this way. I understand Seth's comment completely, but I think in this case, a clean plan, public was duly noticed. If they're concerned, they can contact the office like everybody else does. I'm okay doing it this way.
John?
So if we get rid of the magenta, Art, right? All of the red is what you're talking about here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just so I understand it. Thanks.
Yes, RJ.
Yeah, I'd be in agreement that a cleaned up plan, so it's a little easier to interpret because there are 5 resource areas here. And then also, if this is going to be continued anyways, I wouldn't mind. I agree with Mike on a site visit because I'm not familiar with this site.
Okay. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, cleaned up plan and a site visit, and I'd be fine with that and sticking with an amended order. Thank you.
All right. So I think it's clear from the commission's discretion that they want to do a site visit and have the new plan. So can we schedule the site visit for the 18th, I guess it would be?
Yep, maybe the Monday prior.
And so we'll leave it under the amended order of conditions format. And yeah, would you? Yeah,
One
go
question,
ahead.
Mr. Chair. Will this site visit because of daylight savings be at 3 o'clock? I
3
know we can
o'clock.
work this out, but
Yes.
just so.
3
we're clear.
o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
I wish daylight savings time got abolished, but unfortunately,
I'm
we're
with
not
you.
there yet.
My kids and pets agree with abolishing daylight savings.
So,
Would-
yeah.
I would request a continuance to the 21st and the site visit, and I'll
Thank
see
you.
you
Yeah,
at
the site visit will be on Monday, the 18th at 3 p.m. We'll see you there,
Thank you.
and we'll continue this application to the 21st. That being said, we'll move on to Squam Partners LLC, 89 Squam Road, SE 48 3674. Still represented by you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this project is for essentially residential development on the west side of this property, where we had approval for a cottage and a swimming pool. And the amendment is essentially basically a refinement that has occurred in design process since the initial application was approved. The residential structure itself is the exact same footprint. The swimming pool got a little bit larger but remains outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. The bottom has not gotten any closer to groundwater, so we are maintaining the same elevation as what was previously approved. The driveway got, I guess I would call it just improved, refined, so that it will actually work. We essentially had an architectural design and not a landscape design when we did the initial permitting, and they brought in a landscape designer. And so the extent of the work, the silt fence has not moved. And again, I thought this was appropriate as an amendment and not a minor mod to talk about that distinction here because of the change in the size of the pool. And really that was sort of the driving factor in my mind as to why I filed it this particular way. I think we also had filed a landscape design plan as well. So this plan shows your structural elements, again, remaining outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. And with that, I'd be happy to address any questions or concerns.
Thank you. Questions or concerns from commissioners? Okay, questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, is there a motion to close the hearing and issue the amended order of conditions?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? That will carry unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. And now we'll be moving on to the public meeting. We don't have any requests for determination of applicability tonight. We'll move on to minor modifications. We have 39 Monomoy Road LLC at 39 Monomoy Road, SE 48 3657, represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. This was a order that was issued in July 2023. Work is ongoing, and the proposed project updates include reconfiguration of the approved patios, decks, pool, retaining walls, along with some corresponding regrading landscaping updates. All structural work is outside the 50-foot buffer zone. And that basically reviews it all. Turn over to questions.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? Would somebody like to make a motion to issue the minor modification?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? That will carry unanimously. And we'll move on to the Ocean Avenue Nominee Trust at 20 Ocean Avenue, SE 48 3777, still by Brian.
Thank you. Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. This was an order that was issued June of this past summer. for proposed site improvements within the 100-foot buffer zone to coastal dune. Project updates include reconfiguration of the approved retaining walls, relocation of the AC units on a gravel pad, and relocation of the outdoor shower, along with some corresponding regrading utility and landscaping updates. Again, similar, all structural components of this one are outside the 50-foot. And I'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Questions or comments from commissioners? Somebody like to make a motion to issue the minor modification?
So moved.
Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I think we're going to take Mike for that
I'll
motion.
second.
And Linda for the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Nope, that carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you as well. And that will move us on to certificates of compliance. Start with Jen Sankey Lighthouse Trust, 37 Sankey Head Road, SE 48 3608. Jeff, are you doing this?
Yeah, I'll take it.
All right, go ahead.
So this project was originally, I'm not talking into my microphone like I'm supposed to. So this project was originally for some renovation to the structure. Sorry, I'm just trying to pull up my notes. Back in the olden days, I could just remember, but I'm getting old. This was for a pool and patio and a spa area and a slight relocation of the structure. The pool and patio were not constructed, and there's no desire to construct those. The rest of the work is done. The only minor change is that they shifted the spa on site slightly further south, and it moved it out of jurisdictional area. So we didn't make them come back for a minor mod for that. Other than that, we're recommending this can get issued, and with the pool being gone, those pool conditions don't need to be carried forward.
Do we have the pool conditions in front of us? Because if there's one that talks about discharge into the resource area, we could still continue that.
So, did I just close it? I just did.
They built the spa, yeah.
They built the spa. The spa is not in jurisdiction. The way the condition that we have written it in the past. Sorry, let me try to bring it up real quickly.
I know it's not in jurisdiction, but the discharge condition would still apply. Yeah, because even if things are outside of the jurisdiction, we have the ability to condition projects so that they don't impact the jurisdiction. So you can't build a pool or spa outside the 100-foot buffer and then pump it into the 100-foot buffer. So if we have a condition like that, we should still continue it. If you want to pull up the conditions we have, then we can talk about it.
I have them handy. I won't be able to put them on the screen real fast, but I can read them out to you.
You can read them.
So the way it's written is it specifically says the pool shall not be drained or discharged into an area within the commission's jurisdiction, and the pool should not be chemically treated, and all chemical treatment shall stop. Those are three separate conditions. So they're specific to the pool. I mean, I guess we could continue number 21 and just assume that the spa is lumped in with the pool, that it shall not be continued. I don't think it hurts anything to have it on there.
Let's continue 21, and if it doesn't end up doing anything, it doesn't really matter.
I'm going to make that motion.
So is there a motion to issue the certificate of compliance with ongoing condition 21?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed or abstain? No. That carries unanimously. We'll now move on to Wellner at 8 Wall Street, SE 48 3662, represented by Art Casparo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was a project for a bluestone patio, a deck and steps reconfiguration within land subject to coastal storm flowage, and also the buffer zone to an isolated vegetated wetland. And we believe it's been constructed in substantial compliance with the issued order of conditions. We have to address, there's no real deviations, I believe.
Thank you. Jeff, has staff been on site and checked this out?
Yes, Will and I talked about it today when he got it home, and he completed his site visit and felt that it was in compliance.
And there's no ongoing conditions?
No ongoing conditions.
Would somebody like to make the motion to issue the certificate of compliance?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Nope, that will carry unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. And we'll move on to orders of conditions. Jeff sent out the ones that he had available. If you could also get them on the screen too. Or we'll be starting with 5 QPR LLC, which is just a reissue.
Mr. Chair, I'm recused from 5 QPR.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion
Hold
to?
on, I may be. Is this is the same one, or is this the other one next to it?
That's the one next.
Okay.
Is there a motion to reissue this order for 5 QPR LLC?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, abstain? That carries with Commissioner Mizzarelli recused. And we'll move on to Maxwell House LLC. And Jeff will get this up on the screen.
On the screen. So it's just a quick reminder, this was for the invasive species management on that coastal bank. So below our standard herbicide reporting requirements, normal disposal requirements, I don't know, I'll just go and say, it's our normal invasive species removal kind of conditions that we put on there. I won't bother anyone to read them all.
Okay. Any additions to this order? Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll let you chime in here.
I just noticed there's a reference to Phragmites
Oh.
coverage. which-
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no fragment on site.
No.
Hopefully,
No.
hopefully.
I hope not.
Okay. Anything else?
I just changed Phragmites to invasive species.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So moved.
As amended?
Yeah.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? That will carry unanimously. Now we'll move on to Mubisic LLC at 20 East Lincoln Avenue. And.
I was recused.
Yep, RJ's recused. And Jeff can get that one on the screen.
Up there.
All right. You want to do the quick overview of this?
Sure. So this was that relocation of the structure on that already kind of heavily disturbed mess of a site, to be fair to it. It's a buffer zone restoration that's there. A normal 18 and 19, and then a yearly report for the replanted areas. The restriction that all of the restoration areas be native species, no cultivars. Oh, I apologize. I had deleted those earlier. I must not have saved it correctly, because they're not doing that. And then the last one is there, that the 50% regrowth of native species within the first 2 years and 6 months, just as they're doing that restoration, that they have to come back. Our normal exterior lighting condition, and then our reports are due annually by the date of permits issuance.
Okay.
That's what happens when we switch from Will to Jeff, is sometimes things get saved differently than we thought got saved.
Yeah, I don't think that's really how we normally write the last condition, but it makes sense for what it means, so that's fine. Any additions or questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion
So
to
moved.
issue as drafted?
As drafted.
Actually, this would be, because I put it on the screen and I deleted 2F, if you could just say it as
Okay,
amended,
as
that'd be great,
amended,
because that
please.
was for public record.
Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? That carries with Commissioner Turcott recused. And we'll move on to
Nantucket Road.
Nantucket Road Realty Trust, 44 Nantucket Road. Want to get that up and do a quick overview?
All right, so here we are, 44 Nantucket Road. This was for the porch driveway, and
We still have 15 Cliff up here.
oh, that's problematic. Let me fix that real quickly.
Actually, I have it in my email.
So, there we go, 44 Nantucket. This is for the construction of a porch, driveway and patio reconfiguration, and then some grading, landscaping, and utilities. It doesn't require waivers. Sorry, I don't believe that.
I'm not sure
Where's
about
the
that.
drainage? No, I'm not either, because I
I
know
think
this.
this requires waivers.
Oh, yeah. And I am recused from this one. Which one is this?
44 Nantucket.
I guess from our end, and I sincerely apologize for this. This is my fault for getting to it late today
So we have to
with the switch. I guess I may just ask if we just carry this one forward and we'll deal with the corrected draft with, because I agree, remembering that
do
project as
that.
it did.
I think it definitely requires a waiver.
Yeah.
Especially with the edging that's proposed and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, sorry about that. That may have just been
Okay.
in the midst of getting drafted when we switched humans.
So we're gonna hear this one on the 22nd, 21st, not the 22nd.
Yeah, we'll have the correct draft.
Don't push me over the
Be
edge
out
any
of luck,
further.
The 21st.
Sorry to Brian, it will be a little slow.
Okay, so then we'll move on to Nantucket Land Trust at the various properties. And you want to put that up and go over this one?
There wasn't a lot of stuff on this one.
Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, you're good.
Did I get the right one? No, I did not. All right, I feel better about that now, but now I need to go back to Zoom. And get the share right. Man, I need to just like come and practice from time to time. I'm rusty. That's why I send him, not me. All right, so back to here. This is for the fire break that's there. So I know we've kind of done similar projects. So we just want to memorialize that there's not to be significant soil disturbance. Machinery any areas to reserve result of machinery need to be reseeded with the native mix, refueling outside of the resource areas and their buffer zones. Permits the use of glyphosate as requested with our normal herbicide reporting things. And then we included the 50% regrowth of native species just to kind of keep track of it to make sure that any of those invasives don't come back in. And then I feel like that's how it's more normally written, that all reports are required annually until a certificate of compliance is issued. Then
Annually by the date of issuance or on the anniversary of the. While he's typing that up, any other questions, comments, additions? Okay. Is there a motion to issue the order of conditions as amended?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Nope, that will carry unanimously. And now we'll go on to 19 Walnut Road, the land bank, SC 483818. And Jeff, put it up and do the overview.
All right, so this was the culvert inspection and repair project, which I would love to have that discussion at a later date and time.
We're definitely going to. Yeah.
But the only condition that I know Will had put on was just to have a report detailing the planned culvert repairs, and then based upon the findings of proposed inspections. But open to any
With
other
the findings,
suggestions.
do we usually specifically say that we found it's a water dependent project? Or we don't?
We certainly can. We could add a wordsmith it really quickly.
I know it came up in the hearing, so. Anything else? He'll get there.
Don't worry, we that's just a R next to E. We do check all of these for grammar and spelling before we print them off finally too, but.
Okay. Anything else? Is there a motion to issue the order of conditions as amended?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Nope. That carries unanimously. We also closed two other notices of intent tonight that we don't have a permit for, but those are Emirzian, 84 Quidnet Road. If anybody has any comments on that one that they want to go to Jeff, now's your chance. Or he can just draft it and we can talk about it then. And the other one is Syracuse at 2 L Street. Same thing, any comments on that? Or is he just drafting it and we'll talk about it in that?
You putting them over?
Yeah, we're going to hear those orders on the 21st of
I'll fess
November.
up, we didn't draft those because the file numbers came in at like 4:15.
That's fine,
And
yeah. I just want to give
we have
you
a mental cutoff by 4 for anything like that.
All right. So, extensions of orders, we have none. Other business, we have no minutes. We have no monitoring reports.
Can I really quickly comment on the minutes?
Yes, go ahead.
So for those who know or don't know, the town's minutes taker left employment of the town a few months ago, unfortunately. We are working diligently. You're probably going to get minutes in big chunks starting on the 21st, because we have like 4 to 5 of us in the office trying to get us caught up, because for those who participate in the open meeting law training and things, we're supposed to be within 3 months of the active meeting, and right now we are not. So we are endeavoring before the end of 2024 to be to current. So you'll get them in big blocks.
Okay, thank you. Enforcement actions or potential enforcement actions, we have 63 Baxter Road. Jeff, if you want to overview this to start us off.
Yes, I do. So I know I sent you guys a little report today. I'll pop it up there. Once I put it on the screen over here. So I'll just kind of run through what it is. I won't bore everyone with this section. I'll kind of go right to the pictures. So we received a report on the 5th from Sergeant David Wright of the Massachusetts Environmental Police that they had received a report of some folks filling sandbags on the beach there. And obviously, when we get reports like that, regardless of area, Will and I both headed out to the site as quickly as we could. Kind of what we found on that day and kind of our observations. I know it looks like in the attendees, one of the property owners involved, looks like they may have some other clarity to this. As you can kind of see in this picture here, we found a wall of what are, kind of commercially available sandbags, just the normal ones you see for, flooding and barricading, that had been installed. Sorry, I'm not on the screen anymore. And you can kind of see the area here, just in roughed out. Here's the edge of the core from the previous pictures, running the length, and then they tapered in behind the other core log and back around. We kind of dug through and uncovered some through this area as well. The area on average from kind of end to end, just by rough measuring, was right around 30 feet. And then in the fattest sections were 10 to 12 feet, and it obviously kind of tapered away. Without doing too intense digging, you could see on the front picture, it was stacked 4 to 5 high in there, and then covered, and some sand had been on front. I just want to point out on this picture out in front from where we were, kind of our assessment at the time without any real information, and kind of from the report from the EPO, is it looked like there was some pretty significant disturbance in front of the wall, and some material that had been moved. We believe that some of that material had probably been used, given its all but exact match to the material that was on there, from the beach area onto there. I know we've been provided some information by the property owner at 63 that those bags came pre-filled. We've asked for, and you kind of saw it on the report, we've asked for, receipts and sand delivery receipts to justify that. So we informed that those couldn't be there. They removed all of the sandbags as of this morning. They are all gone and removed, which is nice that they were removed. But I think there's still some questions of where the sand came from, the work that took place. One of the added wrinkles to this is the work that was done from plans from both the existing applications in this area and GIS, and then kind of our confirmation. The work is done not on 63 Baxter Road, but it is done by it was on the town-owned parcel adjacent to 63. So if we end up issuing something, we'll have to provide at least a copy or issue a similar order to the property owner as well. We can't order any mitigation or restoration work on a property without sending it to the people who own the property and having them probably engaged in that process to rectify this. Like I said, we're definitely missing some information. I think our recommendation is to issue out some sort of enforcement order, obviously ceasing any work, and we indicated that in our correspondence with them, but then to also have that open until we can verify where the material came from, what exactly kind of transpired, and then if further mitigation is needed or if material needs to get replaced, how we're going to effectively do that.
Okay. Commissioners, questions or comments? Yes, Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I have my opinions of what it looks like. I think it's probably just go with Jeff's, my opinion is to go with Jeff's recommendation and wait to see what we hear for the next session.
Well, I think we would in the interim want to issue out
Yeah.
the enforcement orders to kind of hold
I
it.
have an idea, but before I do that, let's go to.
Just quick, you think that they took sands from over there and piled it on top of the bags? Is that what you're saying?
From the report that we received from the EPO and kind of our observation, I would say it appeared that way.
Okay.
I will say, Ms. Singer, the owner of 63, is on attendees if you would like to hear from her at some point too. So to make sure you saw that her hand was
I
raised.
do see Bessinger's hand, and I would prefer not to take comments from the public at this time because I would prefer that we issue a cease and desist and a enforcement that says within 30 days, the property owner or really both property owners in this case, provide a report to the Conservation Commission indicating how many bags there were, where they were filled from, with all receipts and dates and of installation and removal, and that we could hear that at next hearing so that we have a full record. I prefer that to have all that in front of us before we engage in discussion on this. Jeff, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, if that's the will of the commission, certainly.
Commissioners? Is there a motion to issue that enforcement order?
So moved.
Can I ask for one point of
Yeah,
clarity?
need some clarification on
Is
that.
that issued to both property owners involved?
It would have to be legally, wouldn't it?
I would believe so.
Yes, it needs to be issued to the town and to the owner of 63. And if we could also dig into the scenario a little bit and see if it was done by said owner or done by a contractor, and if it was done by a contractor, issue it to them as well.
All right, we'll try to find that out.
Yes, RJ, go ahead.
Just a clarifying question through the chair to Jeff. Are you going to try to figure out the volume that was taken from the town property to put onto those bags?
I think probably what we'll end up doing is, we have some measurements on that area as we'll figure out essentially like what the bathtub was. Obviously, you lose a little bit of area to one of those bags, but we could also, they're pretty common bags, fill one and determine what the volume of that bag is to know what that sand would be. And again, I think it'll also be based on, obviously, if we get, receipts and clear sand delivery information that we can review and verify, that volume may shift a bit. But like I said, this developed on Tuesday and we're here on Thursday, so it's been pretty quick.
Yeah, I think the best thing would be to get the report that if the receipts exist of the bags being pre-filled or filled off-site, then we know that. If the receipts show that they arrived empty, then we can assume that they were filled from the beach, and we can get a volumetric estimation from that. It'd also be good to hear the justification for why these were installed, when, and when they were removed, because it's actually two violations. I'm glad that they're gone, but the placement is a violation, but also the removal is a violation too. So we need kind of the timeline, the volume, the receipts and all of that, and then we can make a much more informed decision at that point. Anything else? Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
You still have an active motion on the floor. So.
Yes, I'm aware. So the motion was made to issue an enforcement order by Linda. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? No, that
I'm
carries
going to abstain.
You're going to abstain?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's record the vote as 6 in the affirmative with John Schaefer abstaining. And Jeff, you can get that enforcement out, and we'll hopefully hear from the property owners within that time period.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, while we're on enforcement actions, I am aware that we received a letter in our packet related to 2 Brox Court.
So yes, we had issued them an enforcement action quite some time ago related to some cutting of vegetation and the installation of a shed. The commission ordered that cutting to cease and that area to be replanted and the shed removed. The shed has been removed. They've completed the replanting and complied with that enforcement action?
Great. Questions or comments on that? It did, yeah, but it got done. Any other enforcement actions or potential enforcement actions?
No, I haven't really been super involved with that, so I'm not prepared to.
Okay, let's hear that the next one then. So that will take us on to reports. We have Crack, Tim.
Yeah, just briefly, last meeting on the 22nd, there was a terrific presentation by a woman. I'm going to read it. Her name is Shannon Hulst. She's floodplain and CRS specialist for Cape Cod Cooperative Extension and Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution Sea Grant. And it was a presentation on floodplain bylaws, FEMA maps, building codes, and it included updates on the state zoning and building codes, as well as recommended model bylaw changes. And a bunch of it applied to Concom. I'm just pointing it out to anybody who wants to watch it. It was a really good presentation. It's long, but it was good. That's it.
Thank you. CPC, John, you're up.
We met with all the applicants for the grants, one of which was a rain garden, which kind of applied to Concom there. And now we're going to deliberate here and decide, how the money gets doled out. That's where we are.
Okay. I don't think you're.
We have $16 million of requests and $4 million to hand out.
So that's just how it goes.
That's how it goes.
NPNEDC, Mike?
Yep, so I took the NPNEDC, sorry, that's not working for me tonight, for the Harbor Plan Update Committee. So I'll be jumping in on that. The other relevant discussion was we authorized to reclassify a portion of the roadway to local to rural collector in various roadways to the national highway system, which just basically gives the town some funding down to the dock. And other than that, there was some more discussion on enabling legislation that the Inky Mirror picked up, and you can read that article and form your opinions there. And that was about it.
Thank you. Harbor Plan?
Well, he's coming on sort of at the end, but we have, which is good because quorums have been problems because we're missing 2 people. We're waiting now on a draft, but we haven't met for like a month because we're waiting on the draft and they're working on that draft. So I expect we'll see them before Christmas.
That sounds good. And offshore wind work group, we elected not to send a representative. We can delete that from our agenda. So
If
that,
I might add something to that.
go ahead.
I had a chance to take a look to see who's on that group. I can't find the group on the site, on the town site.
They do exist and they are,
Last week.
but we were asked originally to participate and then I think there was one meeting in 3 years or something, so we thought it wasn't worth a representative's time. Get that off the agenda for now. All right, so commissioners' comments.
Another
Yes.
good meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. RJ, go ahead.
So I have a couple. So the paper this morning, I saw in the real estate section, 15 Loretta Lane, and that was one that had come before the commission a while back and got withdrawn and was never resolved. But I mean, if you take a look at it, there's sod right to the harbor, right to the coastal engineering structure in front of the house. There were questions about the coastal engineering structure and the sheds within the 50. And I don't know if we have any of the old permitting information for 15 Loretta, but I know that it was never resolved, and seeing it for sale today, I was like, that's the one, the round octagonal house. So now it's like bright green lawn right up to the stone revetment on the harbor. And that shed is within the 50. And I saw it today and thought it was worth looking into.
Okay, let's direct Will and Jeff to go out there and check for potential violations.
We'll pull a report together on that. Well,
All right, yeah, we'll wait.
we'll deal with the current conditions there and see
Okay.
if it's
RJ,
in compliance.
Keep going.
My other comment was our procedural meeting. Should we just email staff on agenda items, or is the agenda being put together as we speak, or how's that going to work?
I think we can talk about it now. So the purpose of the procedural meeting is to discuss changes to the commission's operation in general. Before you started on this commission, we had started this process. And we identified a few things that could be improved with the meetings. And I also think there's things that could be improved with the field viewings. Since I'm usually mostly the only person that shows up, not always, other people are sometimes there, but I suggested to Will that instead of having the field viewing scheduled every Monday before the meeting, that we just retain the ability to schedule them if necessary, and that we could work in advance the week before the meeting to look through the filings and then get in touch with the commission, say, we want to do this field viewing, it's going to be this time. Obviously, if you can't make the time, you can always go alone, or you can go with the staff. They're always happy to go with you. But I think having the posted field viewing on everyone's schedule, and it a lot of times ends up not materializing, isn't the best procedure. So if that's one thing I thought about. But RJ, if there's other things that you want to discuss, either say them now or send them to Jeff and Will.
Jeff, you want to write them down right now? I'll just say them right now. So going back to the DEP advice, I think that can be streamlined so that we know when someone comes into your office with an application, you can say, oh, it checks these 3 boxes. You should try for a limited ecological restoration project. And then I know we had discussed doing regulatory updates maybe annually and discussing at the procedural meeting, like if we want to do it in October every year and just go ahead and circle that during the procedural meeting. Those are the 2 I thought of.
Okay, yeah, I think getting a specific meeting on the calendar when we do the new calendar for next year, which I have a comment on, but I'll save it till later, is good so that everybody knows far in advance. Commissioners, anything else that you want to discuss? Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Just one more comment for the procedural meeting. I don't know where it would be, we could apply it, but I've always been looking for, areas where we can vote on consent if staff has reviewed some things, and just to streamline a little time on the meetings instead of procedural. So
Yeah.
I'll be looking to staff for the recommendations on that. Thank
Yep,
you.
I think we're all on board with that. I think there's ways that we could test drive some of the things that won't be like huge changes. So I could foresee us starting with the certificates of compliance and just getting like a whole list saying, this is the staff recommendation for each one of these things. We've gone out to the site. We think they meet there's this certificate for compliance. Here's the ongoing conditions, and then we can vote them all in as a block. But I don't want also to minimize commissioner input. So I think we could have a protocol, like before we did that, we could say, does anybody want to take any of these separately? And then we could, if it was no, so we could move to the vote to take them as a block. So that's some ideas, probably for like minor mods and things like that too. I don't think we should go straight to doing it for the notices or the amended orders without kind of test driving it first, but it could be an idea for the future.
We have a couple ideas on that we'll put to paper and send around in advance to maybe have a couple trial options.
Okay, yeah, Mike, keep going.
And my last comment, I'm going to be away next Monday, the 18th, so I will schedule with Art to get out for the field viewing, independent of the group.
Okay. Yep, Linda.
Just to back up what you were just saying, I was the chairman of the HCC when I put the consent agenda in, and that's what happens. There's a whole list. They vote on a block, but just before they vote on a block, does anybody want to pull one off? And if they don't, then the whole thing goes through at one time.
Yeah.
No. Sorry, guys.
Okay, so on the topic of the procedural meeting, anything else?
Yeah, I have a, can we come in remotely on that one, or do we have to be in person?
It's hybrid. It's
Okay.
Thursday, the 14th at 5 PM in the meeting trailer.
Okay.
The best building, it's the 14th, the best building on Nantucket. And it will be offered in a hybrid format if you're not there physically
Yeah,
present.
we'll make sure everyone has the link.
5 PM. Anything else on that? It was about to be. Okay, so any other commissioners' comments? Yeah, I have one comment. Do we have a draft schedule for 2025?
I forgot to bring it. We'll have it for you guys all at the procedural meeting.
Okay.
But there'll also be a good chance to add on things like the specific regulation meeting and things. So it is done. Lisa and Will put it together, but it's sitting on the table.
Yeah.
In my
It
office.
would be good to review, obviously, and see if there's major conflicts that need to get changed and then go from
Weird
there.
holidays.
We could do it at the procedural meeting.
I think we'll email it to everyone tomorrow and then come to the procedural meeting and we'll see when we can add some stuff in.
Okay. Any other administrator staff reports?
Sorry,
You're good. No worries.
little rusty.
You're fine. With that being said, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, all of us.
Thank you, Linda and Joe, for
Everybody
the
seconded.
second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That carries unanimously, and this meeting is adjourned.
No,
We don't have.
No, I don't.
We don't have things to sign.